The next thing on our on our list is actually it's listed as the master plan, but I'd like to have Mark, could you go out of? Sure. I'd rather after you kind of dovetail a little bit. Sure.
Good afternoon. Thank you for lunch. My name is Mark Prack. I live at 543 Chickamaucomico Way. I'm here today in two capacities. Myself, as president of the Baldy Foundation. We've got Chris Webb, our executive director, here as well. Kind of wanted to bring you forward from the last time we talked. We still have pending with you our petition to close the road. It strikes me that in buying the land, Robin and I bought the land from the developer on the Ballastone Alley tract. It's sort of across the way from the package center and across the way from Old Baldy and the existing Smith Island Museum. We bought that in December. 2 weeks later, donated it to the foundation. The foundation now has the land. This is the land here. There's our lighthouse and the existing stuff. Over here is the post office and package center. Here's the land. It's a right good sized piece of land. Now that we have it, things that have been done since we talked last at this event. Chris McCall and I have asked the utilities people to mark the utilities for us. We wanted to have that information as we started to think about putting together a site plan. We're working with Chip Hemingway in Wilmington, who's not only a talented architect, but works a lot in the museum space. I believe he did the Fort Fisher Aquarium. He's working with Audubon on the Pine Island Sanctuary. And so we're really just getting started. This is convenient because, of course, our goal will be to synchronize this with you and with Chad and Bald Head Island Limited, because there are a number of components that have to work together here. We're acutely conscious of the fact that this will be sort of the front door of the island for people coming out of the marina and walking this way. I had considered putting a conservation easement around here. Didn't do that after talking with people. Although we want to protect all the trees we can, because we're not sure whether what you'll ultimately want when you have the path that comes over here from the marina and across this road. There's obviously going to have to be something that goes the short straight cut, because that's what people who work in the village are going to want to do. And we're working with our people on that. But it may be that we want to do a sidewalk along here. I don't know. I leave that up to all of you and your good judgment. But the kinds of areas where we're going to have to work together, we'll work with Chad and Limited on the path coming over the marina, from the marina. Obviously, it's going through some parking lots and some things that aren't really convenient. I think blanking on his Harper Peterson has his commercial establishment there. The car rental guys are there. So obviously there's some serious work that needs to be done there, deciding what that's going to look like, how it's going to be rounded out. From my conversations with Chad in purchasing the property, he evidenced a desire to want to work with us to make that nice. And so those conversations remain to be pursued, Mr. Mayor. I think that's something we'll all need to be talking about. We're in the, as I say, in the early stages of visioning with our architect. It's harder perhaps to see it here, but Chris is excited about the idea of having an outdoor pavilion here, located principally on the footprint of what is the existing road, which would mean we wouldn't have to knock down any trees to position a pavilion there. The thought is that we could do talks, movies, all kinds of things, different time of year, depending on the weather. We're still kind of struggling with this, because as our architect has laid out the idea of what the building itself might look like, right now we got the front door over here, and we're not sure that's where we want it. It's kind of an odd situation because you don't know whether you're going to be here, and we're still, frankly, we're still trying to figure all that out. Let me breathe in and say, Chris, would you like to offer any thoughts that you might have on our planning and our visioning right now.
We've completed a tentative spatial program, which gives us our future space requirements. So if we're looking at approximately a 2-story, 4,000 square foot building, which takes us into the future with a new museum and a place to locate the first order Fresnel lens that's been in storage for about 11 years. It takes us out of the warehouse that we're renting at Merchants Row. And it puts the Keeper's Cottage back completely into 100% a museum with a library for research on the second floor of the Keeper's Cottage, which right now is the only office space that we have. So we basically have grown so much. Last year was our best year with nearly 29,000 visitors. I would say 50% of our visitors in peak season, well, year round really, come from off the island for the day. And whether that's for a historic tour or whether it's for just a day visitor coming on their own. I would point out, so those people are walking from the ferry with no direction, no signs, probably have never been here before. They tend to come from the ferry through the parking lot of rental carts and overnight parking. And then they tend to walk, cut through this area, which is known to all employees as the Sandy Path. So they don't walk on the pavement all the way. Now, some visitors do. Basically, they're just guided by the landmark. Our school children, we bring them over 150 at a time. That they become problematic. What we like to do with them is walk them in front of the admin building, past the barge landing. And there's a very colorful name for the backside of Jules and River Pilot, which has to do with human anatomy, but anyway, it's not very pleasant. And we walk them across the bridge. Because really, as an entry, the timber bridge is the most dynamic, I would say, as an entry to.
It's the most attractive.
It's the most attractive, it's the best view. But if you're gonna direct pedestrians, I don't know which way is the best way to do it because the barge landing is not safe. We usually have a bunch of chaperones and tour guides and volunteers kind of escorting these kids amongst all those trucks. But those are the only two options unless you send everybody on the road around that curve and down to this intersection. So we're kind of at a point with this ingress and egress from the site that we need to work with the village to say where is going to be that funnel, so to speak, because when we're designing, we have to continue that master plan into the village center. So we've got our spatial planning done. We've got kind of a footprint of a 4,000 square foot building. I mean, we've kind of been crucified in social media a couple of times. It's going to be of a coastal vernacular. There at one time was a 2-story federal style keeper's cottage, clapboard, rafter tails, on Baldy site, and it burnt down like the other keeper's cottage. So that's the look Obviously, the wing on the back for the gallery is gonna be a bit different to house an 18-foot tall, 6,000-pound Fresnel lens. So, but we can, with this gallery space, 1,200 square feet, I think, of gallery space, we can take many, many of our artifacts out of storage and put them on display safely. Right now, we can't do it safely. There's solar problems, there's fire protection problems, and we're just currently not being good stewards of all of our artifacts. All of our artifacts are cataloged. The staff has done a spectacular job, thousands of pieces. We even have a truss of the boathouse inside the lighthouse because we don't know anywhere. Some guy snagged it out of the creek and gave it to us, so it hopefully will be part of some display. This new shipwreck, we have that 20-foot tall rudder that's in the base of the lighthouse that something needs to happen to. We lost a cannon to North Carolina Maritime Museum that was at Fort Fisher because we had no safe place to put it with environmental, humidity control, temperature, all of that. So this takes us way into the future. We have to do it. I think, unfortunately, Baldy is kind of like, for a lot of people, it's like a Disney ride. It's like, okay, we're in Baldy, let's climb the lighthouse. But the majority of our visitors do have an appreciation for history, and historic and cultural tourism is huge. And believe me, lighthouse tourism is really big. And I think it benefits the economy of that. All these people, they go to the store, they rent golf carts, they eat lunch, and sometimes they come back for a longer visit. So, and of course our mission, school children, we've grown our programs greatly. That's why an outdoor pavilion we think will benefit, instead of the whole tent thing, putting up tents, taking down tents, we can rent it out for weddings, we can rent it for other gatherings. It would be 20 by 40, which is the size of a tent that comes over, and disrupts the whole village center because 3 Cheers rental has got their truck parked on the sidewalk. And this would eliminate all of that need by having this sort of park pavilion structure, open air, which I think after the loss of the tent site, hint, there's no, other than the clubs, there's no other sort of outdoor gathering space that people can use. And I think it would be great. I mean, when we do events, a big cost is bringing in a tent, and it's a headache. So I want to get rid of tents.
Tents are something we.
Temporary tents.
Temporary.
So that's kind of where we stand. So I think that the next step is to mesh. This needs to.
Well, this is a good time for me to jump in.
If you want, go ahead. Jump
on
in
in.
with response, because we can do something.
So what's going on the village level? We put out a request for qualifications from landscapers, planners. They're in. They're being reviewed on Monday at noon.
And you're looking for this to get from the marina to the area, or?
Well, we're looking at it for a few locations, but this is one of them.
Location.
This is one of them.
Okay.
And me personally, I think this is a critical development. I think it has everything to do with coming to the island and the presentation of the island. And
us having history at one end, and Chris and the Conservancy having science and nature.
the other one. And I think that it's something that, your description of students coming over, visitors to the lighthouse coming over and cutting through a parking lot or else dodging between trucks at a barge landing. It's a real tough one to come up with a solution But, you know, we're gonna get a professional to come in and take a look at it. We're gonna get, you know, a proposal to do that.
My suggestion, do you remember when we met, and I purposely didn't pick Chip Hemingway up at the ferry?
I don't know, but I've talked to Chip.
On purpose,
Oh, just so, yes, yeah, we did, I know.
and he never walked to the village center before.
Yeah.
Someone always picked him up, and I made him walk. And he, that was his first comment.
I told Chip.
Oh, I didn't know where I was going, and I said, there you go.
Yeah, I talked to Chip about your project and needing the master plan to get to it. And I asked him when he was gonna be available, and he said, well, I could be there in 20 minutes. And I was like, we're not ready yet.
Okay.
But yeah, but so the enthusiasm, at least me personally, I'm very enthusiastic about this, and I think the village will be too. I haven't spoken to Chad about this specifically, but he has provided me plans of the bridge lots, your standing walkway, and the locations, the parking, and everything.
Yeah,
So we're starting to gather the base information that we need to go forward. Of course, we're talking about somebody else's property. And
You know, we are, and here's the only thing I'd say to that is I'm happy to help you and work with Chad on this, because he and I, during the process of our acquiring Ballastone to give to the foundation, you know, we had a pretty good Vulcan mind meld on his willingness to help.
yeah, and I've been, I found them, I find Chad easy to work with. He's been really responsive to our meetings, and I meet with him on a regular basis. And so the next step for us in meeting with him, I think it's gonna be, sooner than later.
Well, here's a couple other things just to add on to what we were talking about. We have a restroom problem, right?
Yeah,
So Chris has got our existing restrooms, the privy, right outside the keeper's cottage, that basically do a lot, that and what you all have from the village hall. For now, we're gonna have some, as the plan goes, we're gonna have not only indoor restrooms in the museum building itself, but also some that can be accessed from the exterior,
Right.
even when we're closed,
or
right?
the use of that, when somebody's using that pavilion, we don't have to open the building.
We don't want them to have to come back in the building, but we're gonna have some restrooms there for that. The other thing that I wanted to highlight for you all, since you're in your planning retreat, is while we're still messing around with coming up with a site plan to give to you all and let you work over with us, I will just tell you that,
She's got switch drive.
okay, that's great. Yeah, if we could switch back to the other one. The parking issue, just to focus on parking for a second, is we're looking here at this piece to be able to let you do some diagonal parking in there. And it may require reworking the nose of this place, which is, I know anytime we cut down a tree, it breaks my heart. There is one tree out there that I bet if we're gonna have fire trucks and other things, make that swing in a reasonable way, we'll have to consider what we'll do.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, I think we're gonna be able to do this by pushing our building a little further back than we had originally thought. I was thinking we're gonna be out here and up in the road. Now we're looking like we should be back a little bit. So maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. Just wanted to flag that for you all as you think about what it'll look like.
So, and also in Chip's review with y'all's parking behind the new village hall, I mean, would any of this area be good for additional?
there
I mean,
is,
we're gonna put as much parking as we can. There are some low spots that we have to be careful of. We'll get Bruce Merrick in there, somebody to figure that out, because clearly you don't wanna pave a low spot.
I think one of the critical things on all of this is, if you're looking at this connection to here, parking, it's not parking only for you, it's, you
Anybody,
have to be looking at this
The whole
whole thing.
thing.
Globally.
the whole
yes,
village, whole
Absolutely.
village center.
Absolutely, we have to look at it globally, because we tend to have the parking now along the street, but I think there's maybe 10 spaces is all. So our overflow goes
Back there.
along the curb.
Another thought on parking, just while it's on top of mind here, As you know, the way the curb is set up in front of Old Baldy and along there, it looks to me like if we push the fence back a little bit, you took the sidewalk, you could probably put some diagonal parking in there. That might work. If it were on the same line as what's in front of the chapel, you know, the chapel has that little indented space. If we went to that line without messing with that cedar tree, that's a possibility as well. And as Chris hinted, we're having conversations with the chapel about the land between the oil house and the chapel.
Right. I think this is another one of these things where when we're looking at the new village hall, we're looking at your museum, use of the old village hall, and the island's only a little bit more than half built out. The parking strategy has got to be more than, I got a handful here, a handful. It's got to be the whole district and looking at.
As big a footprint for it as we can give,
Or at least
consistent with the look and feel of our.
Yeah.
need plan for it so that.
And the current, I mean, in front of the picket fence is the village right away. So, along that
Right.
sidewalk and the green area that I ordered for years, but
But we won't mention it.
but I turned off the irrigation. I'm gonna get goats.
Oh, this is all exciting.
So I think the takeaway from this is we've invested with Chip to kind of get that spatial planning, get sort of a master plan. I don't know how much further we can move forward without some sort of.
I don't think you can. I think Chip needs our intentions so that we start dovetailing with him.
We need to
But
get our landscape figured out.
But I also think a formal, and I don't know legally how this is done, but an agreement to close the road. Because without that,
Yeah, then.
this doesn't work.
And that's why Rob and I filed our petition, all.
So we can't move forward with you or with Chip and you unless we get that formal commitment. Because we can't have a bifurcated campus with traffic going through.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't work for us.
Yeah.
Right.
And so what else can I tell you? So in order, as we move towards coming to a final site plan and use of the land, closing the road, then of course, we're going to be having a capital campaign.
Right.
Because where do we fly spec this project is costing us?
Well, I mean, y'all know what your village hall came in at.
Yeah.
I mean, Chip is hoping, 7 to 8 a square foot rather than the crazy 1,000. It's not a complicated building. But it does have, I mean, exhibit and display runs you 3 something a square foot.
Right.
Without the building.
Right.
Just restoring the lens back to its previous semi-glory, it is another, 200. So on top of just the 800 a square foot. I did, in this drawing, these red rectangles here, and here are the proposed parking areas.
So here, there, and then along the street.
Yeah. I think what's critical right now, and we'll work on getting it in place right away, is getting all the different players that need to be talking to each other. And obviously the village needs to, we have to make a commitment or not, so that's critical.
Yeah, because if we can't have, I think the meshing together the master plan is easy. I mean, everybody agrees they want to do this right. I think we've got Chad, we've got Chip working for the village and for us. You've got these RFPs coming in. It's the road that concerns me only because we can't afford to invest more funds into design unless that comes to fruition.
So Chris McCall can correct me if I'm wrong here, but prior council in spirit agreed to close that. And what we were asking for at that time was to be able to see some site plan, because the original went over that and we were worried about utilities.
Right.
So those were the things that were holding us back, is we needed to know what you were gonna do, because it made a big difference if it's gonna go across that road and what that was gonna do with utilities for us. So that was, and I don't know that we, and Scott, I guess three of us.
We
were-
haven't, but
But
JP
we-
is obviously well aware of what they're
Yeah.
proposing, so we can get a recommendation from JP. and-
Yeah,
I think, you know, there's some,
To be on the survey.
Yeah.
we have significant trees too. There's like a 54-inch oak in there. You know, that we have to jockey around. And then we have a big elevation difference from Lighthouse Wine down.
Right.
6 feet.
At
I
least,
think that's why he
Yeah.
just did this little.
Yeah.
So we do have an elevation difference. We can use it to our advantage in
Sure.
some places. But I think, I mean, it's gonna be the welcome center, no matter how you look at it.
Front porch.
And I just as an example, years ago, Donna Ray Mitchell, she always wanted to do this was, you know, I don't know how many years ago, and put like a information kiosk and let other organizations come and man it.
Right.
You know, if like the Conservancy was welcoming a group, they could kind of use that outdoor kiosk to, you know, put their information, meet their group, and, you know, because we're just such a central location. And I kind of think that could work. Not commercial entities per se. Well, people want to know about restaurants. They want rat carts. They want, you know, at the visitor center, whatever you get.
I think we're starting,
Yep.
and I think we know what we need to focus on in order to keep you going.
That's right. And
Yes.
to Emily's point, at the meeting, the last time I was with you, I was looking to try to get the road closed before I closed on the land.
Yeah.
But after the meeting I had with you all, I was comfortable enough to buy the land, donate it to the foundation and get this rolling, because what I've learned is everything takes a little longer than you'd expect. And as we've gone along the way, we've tried to build as big and as broad a community consensus as we can. And so what I'd close with is this. We're working this. We're happy to let you see what we're doing even before we finish and bring it to you. We're not opposed from input from all stakeholders, because at some point I'm going to be coming around to them and saying, hey, how'd you like to donate some money to our building project? And so at the end of the day, we're really trying to come up with something that we think we want the whole community to be proud of.
Yep.
And that's where I leave.
Great.
Okay,
Any other questions?
questions for anybody?
Scott, you got any questions?
No, I just want to say thank you both for all you're doing. I think particular the approach you're taking, the amount of input you're welcoming. And I hope you understand that the issues that the village is trying to work our way through, you know, with regard to utilities and long-range planning, and which you both have good ideas about as well. So I think we're all in this together. I'm struggling with what exactly do you need? I mean, other than us making a blanket, let's close the road. I'm willing to do that, but I want to put a condition on it just to make sure we see the final site plan before it's done.
Exactly. We think that, yeah, absolutely. We would want that.
And
If
I,
you want to do something conditional, we can do that.
yeah, and I think that the master plan of the harbor area, we have to have that information to be successful with ingress and egress from the site. I mean, goes hand in hand.
Yep.
I always said landscape architects like college campuses, why do you put the sidewalks in first? Just wait and see where the people walk. And then put it. Because you put all these sidewalks on a quad, but then you have all these dirt paths, you know? They're
Yeah.
finding that at D Point, they're putting in gravel paths because people aren't using the site. You know,
Right.
so they've created that sandy path. But the other thing too, Peter, that I think we should look at is that kind of boardwalk along that bulkhead wall behind the barge landing. It-
Right.
That's meant to keep going. They stopped it, but it was meant to continue, and, most of it's already built.
Well, when we get to the point where we figured out how we hire or engage a planner, obviously you're gonna be meeting with them. Because you're one of the big players, so.
To Scott's point, at some point, and you can work with council on this, we don't mind working with you on this, having a commitment to close the road, subject to the conditions that you sign off on the final site plan. It's gonna be something, given the complexities of the ingress and egress and how you're gonna wanna play that may take a little while.
Right.
But if you wanna take that approach, what Scott was suggesting is fine by me. That's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, I don't think we can be successful with our site plan unless it talks to your site plan.
I think the two of them have to go together.
Yes,
That's good.
yeah, absolutely.
Good.